Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Mystics on a Mission show. I am your host, Hannah Beer, and I am here today with the lovely Lucy Sheridan. Hi, Lucy.
Hello, Hannah, and hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
So good to have you. So, Lucy is a comparison coach I found on Instagram through our common friend, Ruby Warrington of The Numinous. Her book just came out. We were just talking about her.
Yeah.
So excited to have a friend who's publishing books. And yeah, I found Lucy on Instagram, which was the perfect place to find her because she is a comparison coach.
Yeah.
And it's really
How
cool.
millennial of us.
Yes. It's really cool to follow you on Instagram because it's like you're scrolling down your feed and then all of a sudden there's this message of don't compare yourself, don't compare despair. And it's like, oh, thanks. So good.
Oh, that's cool, Hannah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so for people who don't know what you do and who you are, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your work?
I'd love to, thank you. Yeah, well, as you've kind of highlighted, I have the most niche job title ever, in that I think I'm the world's first and only comparison coach. So I specialise in helping people go from comparing despair to comparison free. So this can work in different ways. I kind of do a lot of Facebook lives. I'm on Instagram a lot, like you say, kind of saying, guys, filter get back to guys, remember you, guys, stay in your own lane. Just as that flag and reminder, because this message is really kind of my life purpose. It's something that's followed me around my whole life. I can remember from a very young age, like younger than 5, but certainly around 5 when my brother was born, comparing myself to how my parent acted with him and comparing myself to him. And then I kind of took that into school, comparing my colouring in to other children's, and then comparing, how fast I was at, swimming and all sorts. And it's just really been very present in my life. And I kind of assumed that everyone had it, and I think I was right in that, but I had it very intensely. I know I shouldn't compare my comparison, but I look back now and I needed to chill out a lot, but that didn't happen. And then it got really, really acute about 5-6 years ago, and I had a bit of a breakdown, not because of going to a school reunion, but it was around the time of going to a school reunion. And I was I had a great time on the day, but it was a little bit challenging afterwards. So the day itself, we drank prosecco, we chatted, really reconnected, lots of giggling, lots of chatting into the night, and like long hugs when we kind of said goodnight. And with that reunion came lots of new connections in my social media feed. So when I woke up the morning after, I was kind of presented with this Las Vegas comparison that I created for myself. And the thing is, in terms of the context of what was going on in the background for me, I wasn't in a great place personally. So I was suffering quite serious anxiety at work. So it was rare that I wasn't crying in the week. And I wasn't the only one either. I worked in the advertising industry. It's not like we were saving lives. It's not like we were in the emergency room, or A&E as we call it here. But it was highly pressurized, not always the most supportive. And rather than just kind of set boundaries, be like, you can't treat me / us like that, and that's not going to work for me, I just kind of let things railroad. And I participated in that fully, but I wasn't having a great time in my career. And also personally as well, like my now husband but then partner, his business was unfortunately having some issues and ended up going into liquidation, and we lost our house. So there was this perfect storm of like shit, if you'll excuse my language, that was happening, that was so opposite to what was an Instagram friendly life. And yet I was in a room with people that, lots of women with red bottom shoes, if you know what I mean. And one girl had to leave the reunion early because she had an interior designer come in. I was like, you have an interior designer? You have a house? Like, what the hell? I would really set my comparison to overdrive. And for the next 2 years or so, it was a bit like a tendril, like in old fairy tales, and something wraps itself around your leg and like pulls you down. And that's what it feels like comparison did for me, or I let it do for me. I'd find myself 3 years deep in someone's holiday photos. I'd know exactly where everyone was going on holiday, know who got promoted, who'd had kids, da, 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 da. I was like the oracle in everyone else's lives, but mine was going down the pan. I was spending a lot of time, energy, focus, and emotion, which was so exhausting, looking at what other people were doing and using that to bash myself over and over and over. And I think it kind of got to one Saturday around Christmas, say like 4 years ago or something. And I think I was under my duvet on a Saturday afternoon, fully clothed, not having a really great time. And I had this little voice in my head saying, you can't do this anymore. Like, this has got to stop. And from that day, I just decided to try and get myself out of it. If I could think and feel myself into such a dark comparison trap, then perhaps I could give myself the invitation to think and feel myself out of it. And that's when the work really started. And now, if we kind of fast forward to today, by some crazy, amazing gift of synchronicity and I guess alignment, I now am able to kind of help people get over comparison that might be affecting them, even if it's only 5% as bad as mine was, because unfortunately 5% less self-focused on you can still have 100% impact when it comes down to you, your dream, and where you want to be. So really kind of try and come from my lessons to take some of the heavy lifting and pain out of it for some people as well, because any day wasted on comparison is a day wasted on life.
I love that. So why do we even compare ourselves?
Oh gosh, I think it's such a primal thing almost. I'm sure that there are the academics that could tell us about kind of the beginning of, civilizations. And we had to make sure we had resources. Look at what others had. So we knew if we had enough too. But I think ultimately it's an ego thing. I kind of believe in this ego and intuitive way of living and thinking. And, ego, is another word, I guess, for fear. And fear speaks first and speaks loudest. And I think we compare ourselves because it's a way of kind of our ego getting in control and saying, you haven't got this is scarcity, you need to sort this out. But rather than it being a place of action, which can be for some people, for some people, this world is like a living Pinterest board. They see something like, I'm inspired by that, I'm going to go get it, I'm pinning that, almost like energetically. Or, hey, she got that great job, good for her, I'm going to go do that too. But ultimately, that's not how most of us act. So we compare ourselves out of desperation, out of scarcity, when we're just not feeling like we're in alignment too. But rather than kind of make the step through that to, hey, what's not feeling good for me or what isn't working for me in my life, it's much easier to go, oh, look at what they've got. Oh my goodness, I'm no good. I'm never going to make it. I'm the one that's not going to make it. I'm being singled out for, nasty treatment, for example. Or, we collect evidence that other people are kind of better than us or further ahead than us, which is just so misguided and so stupid, actually, because one of the great analogies I heard recently on Facebook, and I must find the source for this, but it's about ultimately not trusting our own time zones is one of the key reasons we compare ourselves. So, for example, I think it's like, LA wakes up, say, 5 hours, 6 hours behind New York, I think the numbers are, forgive me if I'm slightly wrong on that. But nobody in New York accuses LA of not having their shit together. It doesn't make it any less vibrant, cosmopolitan, like go-getter, energetically like primed and high vibe, and all the positive words you could use for a place like LA. It doesn't make it any less of those things because it's timing. It wakes up slightly later, relatively speaking, than New York. And equally, no one would necessarily say about New York, oh, it's so much better because its lights go on earlier than LA's does. And I think that's something that's really important to remember, is that comparison comes up a lot because we're not in trust of our own time zones. And that coupled with maybe not being clear on what our dreams are and what we want to, it makes comparison really easy for it to take hold and fall into a trap. But more than that as well, why we stay there is because comparison, well, I'll speak for myself, but for my clients too, or just anecdotally, comparison always brings friends. So for me, comparison brings envy, jealousy, discomfort, procrastination, self-doubt, low self-confidence. It brings out my bitchy side as well. So I find I get quite gossipy about people when I have no business doing that. And I'm kind of up to 8. I'm nearly running out of fingers in terms of all the horrible friends that comparison brings with it. So that's kind of just to add a little bit to the answer here. That's not just where that's kind of comparison can show up. But ultimately, that's why comparison can stay around like a horrible, smelly fog too, because it brings with it some quite difficult emotions that aren't easy to sit with at all.
Man, this speaks so deeply to me. And I feel like for a long time, my own comparison was completely in the shadows. I wasn't even aware of it. And my friends and my boyfriend had to repeatedly talk to me about this. And they had to sit me down and say, Hannah, this is getting out of control, because they noticed that I was comparing myself to people who are doing the work that I want to do, but who are 40, 50 years senior to me.
Yeah.
like ridiculous stuff like that. Or, and then when they talked to me and they were like, Hannah, this is not realistic.
Yeah.
Hannah, like they just are so much older than you, time in this
Yeah.
world is still real. You still
Yeah.
need to put in work and actually get to where you want to go. Like, you
You
can't
got it.
just beam yourself there. That doesn't exist yet. You still have to walk the path.
Exactly. And that's something that I have as like a personal mantra for me when because I get it too. And this is another thing. So I did a live stream about this, and it was called like things I don't want you to know about me. And one of them was I still compare myself because I'm a human being living on planet Earth. So I'm like dedicated and committed to dissolving comparison. But a really good day or good week or good month for me is living 80% comparison free, because I used to be like 100% in comparison. So that sort of progress, incrementally speaking, is huge. But whenever it comes up, and when it does come up, it's a bit like a geyser, like a volcano goes, it's very hot, it's very powerful. But I've been able to learn how to just have it come down again and then go back and dissipate. So it will come in. I have had those times when I'm like ranting around my house, but something that will always help bring me back to myself and dissolve the comparison is a mantra, which is really plain language, which is nobody gets to skip the work. Nobody gets to skip the work. And especially I find this really valuable if I'm having an off day, or what I perceive to be. I think, you know what, Lucy, this is gonna make one hell of an anecdote. To make one hell of an anecdote when, like, you're sharing on a stage or you're talking to a client about how you experience comparison in this situation, where it's personally, professionally, because I can't hide from mine. It can show up anywhere when I least expect it. When I'm being most robust, it's like, aha, here I am with another lesson. I'm like, another one, really? Anyway, nobody gets to skip the work. I find a really powerful mantra, because also when it comes to me and my dream, and I only want to speak from that place because hopefully that it will invite people to do the same too, but I want to be here when everyone else has gone. So I see this work as a lifelong journey. It will evolve, it will grow, it will change shape, it will change message, I'm sure of it. But I want to be one of the ones that is hanging around, long after this is seen as, long after it's seen as like cool or the new thing or a new trend. When this is bedded down and consolidated, I want to be like one of the old war horses of the wellness scene who's been doing it since 2014, because that's going to seem like a long way away then, and that's it. So for me, so it brings me really back to myself, and like you've talked about in your own story there, Hannah, about the journey of it, is that everything is part of the anecdote. Everything is something to share if we choose to or not. But it's another kind of brick in the wall of our commitment, I see in that way. Don't get me wrong, I still get frustrated. I still have a crazy, horrible shadow side of judgment, which I'll apply to other people and myself. Like no one gets it as bad as I give it to myself equally, which is something I'm working on a lot. But again, one of the human assignments I think I've been given. But nobody gets to skip the work is a really important mantra for me. And please note that doesn't come with an energy of work harder, be better, beat them, grab the bull by the horns. It's just an honouring of everyone's journey, theirs, whoever my comparison subject is, or my own. So nobody gets to skip the work, I can find very calming in a moment of comparison.
That's so good. I have this other thing that I want to ask you about.
Sure.
So sometimes in the past, the only thing that then calmed me down was remembering that I'm better than I used to be. And so I was comparing myself to older versions of myself. And whenever I somehow took a step back in life, for example, didn't make as much money as I used to, or I moved somewhere new and I have to make new friends, or, just something doesn't go exactly the way I wanted to, like the next step isn't exactly forward, I go down on myself and I think, oh my God, everything you did in the past was so terrible. Everybody else is like making strides into the future. And, it's almost like when I compare myself to my former self, it gives me this temporary sense of ease, knowing that, I'm better now. But when I'm not actually a step ahead of my former self, then I get down on myself again. So what do you think about that?
I think that, well, first of all, like, thank you for your honesty, because I think although that sounds like it is that can be really tough when it happens. I imagine that's quite a foggy feeling to experience. It's like recognizing it's everything, and like, you've got to notice what you notice. But I think the kind of the same applies there, in terms of like, we think that growth goes like this, and like from a distance it does, but if you really like zoomed in, like with a circle style like you see on TV, you'd see that growth goes like this. Like, everything does. And I find, because I can relate to this as well, Hannah, and I find, you know, it's, again, I can be my biggest self-critic, but then if I look around in the world, I see that's how everything's progress kind of goes. Even the most successful football teams get thrashed by kind of like the up and coming, like, you know, underdogs there. Even big businesses make wrong investments and then have to lay people off. You know, even you know, relationships that were going strong go through bad patches, and that have to kind of, that will really challenge people to come back together. So I try and look at it almost like natural laws. So it's different in terms of when those opportunities present themselves, we have the opportunity to kind of just ignore it and, you know, go into the you know, ignore the fact there's a lesson there and go into the bashing. Or we can look at, is this a pattern? Is this self-sabotage, for example? Have I got an upper limit problem? Which is something that, you know, is the teachings of a guy called Gay Hendricks, who wrote a book called The Big Leap. I don't know if you've come across that one, Hannah, or your listeners. If that's new to you, I highly recommend you download that, like, now. Like, after you've listened to this, go on your phone, go to your iTunes and get The Big Leap on audiobook, because that was something I found for me, is that life has never happened to me. I've been in it, and I've chosen to react to certain things in certain ways, many of them destructive, many of them positive as well, though. Well, I have tried to, through my own self-inquiries, understand when comparison comes in, or when I feel like I've gone backwards rather than forwards, what's been the pattern? Because sometimes it's that, for example, I've sabotaged myself. You know, I've created a really great opportunity, but then I've been slow to communicate or late to meeting, which I would never normally do. You know, or there's often, I think, patterns that reoccur, and whether they're behaviour or mindset ones, they're there for us to look at when we are in a place of feeling like we're behind where we used to be, even. Because often we're sitting there with that feeling, but we're looking back at so much success, so much evidence for the contrary. Actually, things are going really well. But if it might be, rather than it's a repeated scenario, that it's a repeated feeling. So using the example of, like, you're moving, just say you move cities or countries again. So what that tells me is that you have a big vision, a big appetite for experience. You want colour and vibrancy and culture to be part of your life, whatever happens. And that tells me you're a go-getter, and that you are, you know, you're independent, and you can be self-sustainable, but you can connect with other people as well. So that's a long list of attributes that gives me when I kind of hear about that's something that's important to you. And yeah, it sounds like you're coming out of that scenario thinking, oh, here I am again.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the invitation is it's how you look at it, isn't it? Which I know sounds like an enormous platitude, but I'm not going to apologise for that, because beauty in that simplicity. Because there's also, when you find yourself in that situation, like, here I am again, and I know what to do. So in about 2 weeks, I'm probably going to have a full diary. Or in 2 weeks, I'll have this city licked.
I love that. And I also love that you're talking about the big leap and about life advancing in contractions and then expansions. Because now that I've been conscious of it a little longer, I'm really starting to embrace my contractions. You know, and I know every year before my birthday, I fall into a deep, dark hole. You know, just astrologically, that's what happens. It's a big contraction right before my birthday. And my friends don't know it, but I'm always like sending messages before their birthdays, and really conscious, because it does happen to everybody else as well. And then every month before I get my period, I also know, okay, like, that's the most contractive phase in my life. And then, you know, after something really great happens, or after, you know, I put in a lot of work and I really, you know, have faith in myself and I do something big, I know that right after I'm going to contract like crazy. It's like I'm a balloon. Somebody like sticks the pin in and it goes, and it's so good, because it's almost like, I read this quote somewhere where they compared it to the bow and arrow. So basically, the arrow's being pulled back, and yes, it hurts. Like, there's so much pressure, there's so much tension. You know, it is a very intense physical experience, and it is, you know, not necessarily so easy. But when you can really, like, relax and surrender and enjoy the pain and the discomfort, then it's not so bad anymore. Because what has to happen when you're being pulled back, like an arrow, you have to be shot forward. And that's what inevitably happens. And I noticed that my story of, oh, I'm going backwards, or oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, you know, look at what all those other people are doing and everything's so great for them, and whatever might come up for me, like that's actually what just spoils my experience. Like I'm gonna expand either way, but I can also just make it easier for myself by not comparing myself so much to others and getting down on myself when I'm in this productive phase.
I think that's like fundamental as well, Hannah, because something I've found that helps really well with that is staying very tightly tuned into myself. So for example, I have a morning practice. I'm not a 5 a.m.er. I'm not, on my mat in the garden or anything like 5 a.m. I rarely get out of bed before 8:30 because my sleep is really grounding for me. So I need it. And if I'm not, I'm a cranky so-and-so anyway. But my morning practice involves like a little bit of journaling. I listen to my favorite music, and I have like, do my gratitudes, etc. But I found that in times of like stretch, growth, pullback, priming, I would find myself feeling very unsafe. So I'm like, I'm in trust. Oh my God, I'm going to say to myself, I'm going to pull some tarot cards. And I was just a bit high pitched, like my energy was like, even though I was in trust, I had like my big toe in there, but the rest of me wasn't there. And so my morning practice wasn't doing it. So something I found really, really important in terms of moving through and feeling like I can lift myself in those times when I'm in resistance mode, where I kind of feel like it's the outside of me being pulled, not everything from my organs out, because equally that can feel quite traumatizing, is to kind of like put my hand on my heart, on my finger, on my pulse at any time I'm feeling a bit, and feel my heartbeat, and just take like 10 deep breaths, and I'll be like, you're okay, you're so safe, you're so loved, you're so protected, you're so supported, you're okay, and just like get back in my body. Because something I've been like reading about over the last couple of years or so, and this might not be for everyone, but I'm just going to reference it because it might be interesting research or kind of reinforce anyone else's practice, but it's like our chakra system. We have a chakra system, energy points through our body. The first one is the root chakra. Now, the root chakra is kind of like, almost like where our primal needs are, the very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Ultimately, what that points to is, do I feel safe? So you take care of your root chakra, it'll take care of you. In any moment, all I want really is to feel safe and secure. Now that may not sound aspirational, luxurious, or go-getter or challenging on first listen, but let me just qualify that a little bit. When I feel safe and secure and I feel okay, I also feel robust. I feel like I can make solid decisions. I feel confident to ask questions of other people because I feel secure. So their information can't hurt me. That's my fear mind that speaks first and speaks loudest, wants me to think. And I'm also kind of, I'm taking care of myself. So I don't miss lunch. I get enough sleep. I have a very grounded and well-rounded way of being. So that is a great way for me to create the conditions then for what I want to fall in. So I think it's really, really important when you are in a comparison phase or in a stretch phase or transition phase to tune very acutely into feeling okay. Because that can feel like such a wealth of positive feeling when you're feeling uncertain. And the way I do that, like I say, is checking in with myself. It could be sometimes once an hour. Are you all right? And I'll like rub my own arm. Are you okay? Because, you have, what is it? You have like two homes. Like the first was like your mother's body, and then the second is yours or something. But it's like, I really feel like either comparison like lives outside us, and it makes us come outside of ourselves into if and should. So anything I can do is to stay in this body and stay connected with myself always helps, especially when I'm not feeling too great. So that might be like you referenced, Hannah, in a transition period where I really feel like, oh shit, the world is like really throwing some heavy punches here. Or it might be, a flight gets delayed. I'm like, I hate flying. And I feel like, oh, got my jitters back again. Oh my God, I'm going very high pitched. That's even just like how I go energetically. It's staying really, really tuned into yourself, not just through a morning practice, but through the day. Like sometimes, especially if I'm having like a really busy day, I'll set reminders on my iPhone for like every 90 minutes saying breathe in capital letters and like an emoji. And it means that before I see the Instagram notification, well, actually, I've taken all my notifications off, we might get onto that later. Before I see the text message or the reminder to take the laundry out, whatever it is, I'll see that, breathe. I'm like, yeah, because that's the most important thing, actually, I have to do. Because as long as I'm doing that and looking after my system, everything else can come and go and I can meet it halfway.
I love that. I really love that you're talking about how important it is how we feel about ourselves and how we
Yeah.
feel in our own bodies. Because you
Yeah.
also earlier talked about comparison coming up a lot when we are in a bad place, when we're feeling like our life isn't going the way we want it to go. And then instead of looking at ourselves and looking at what's going on with us, we look at other people, looking at, what they're going through and stuff. And I feel like oftentimes social media is being bashed, or, beauty magazines are being bashed for, the root cause of our feelings of inadequacy and our root causes of feeling, that like we're not enough, like we should be doing better, or if we should be looking differently. And I kind of don't really, that's okay. I really want to be honest here. I don't really buy into that, because even before I was exposed to beauty magazines, I was comparing myself, even before all of that entered my life. And, I don't read beauty magazines today, and even on days where I'm not on social media, except when I'm out in the woods or in nature, like I compare myself, because there are other humans. And just because I'm human, I want to make sure that I belong. I want to make sure that, like everybody else is doing that, like, am I still part of the tribe? And so I almost like appreciate this insecurity sometimes, because it makes me feel human. It's like, oh, I'm looking around myself to see, am I like everybody else? Am I as good enough as everybody else? And the feeling of I'm not good enough definitely hurts, and it somehow brings me back to my human need of knowing that I'm just like everybody else, knowing that I'm just as good as everybody else. I'm going through the same stuff everybody else is going through. I'm unique. Definitely, my path is unique. There's no competition on my soul path, because only I can accomplish it anyway. So, if only I could do it, nobody else can take it away from me. It's true, though. Yeah.
It is, absolutely. And I agree with you on that, because I think even before the media was what it was, like, our parents would still, like, go to Christmas parties, which was like the grapevine back then. I'm only talking about, like, the 80s, by the way. 1990s, like, sorry, Mom. They go to Christmas party and they'd hear an anecdote, a story about how someone was doing, or flying first class, whatever, and it would be like, whew, they used to call it keeping up with the Joneses, didn't they? Or that was kind of one of the themes of it. And now we have kind of keeping up with the Joneses, like, on steroids going on. But that's where I kind of relate to you with this, and that we can't be made to feel a certain way. We have to give those feelings and assign them ourselves. That's why somewhat a trigger for you won't be a trigger for me. A trigger for me would be a trigger for you. For example, and same with our friends. You just like listen out next time you're in the bar or whatever, and someone says like, "Oh God, have you seen what so and so's doing on social media? Don't you think she's great or whatnot? Or who does she think she is?" And you might be like, "Oh, I think she's all right. Just leave her alone." Or, "Yeah, I think but she's working for that for ages." So we don't get that trigger of our friend's anecdote. But equally, they won't get ours either. And that's the interesting thing too, is that comparison's been around forever. Now it's here. Our invitation / challenge / opportunity is to manage it. I don't think, like I said, I'm the comparison coach and I still get it. So I don't think it's something that is ever going to go away fully. I try and cut off the oxygen to it as much as I can do, and stay just on point with me. Because if my cup's full, I get to fill everyone else up as well. And I'm really a big believer in that. But I think the biggest challenge is to manage it. This digital world is only going one way. So it's down to us to decide, and it is a decision, how much that will overspill, because it is an overspill, into our real lives. So that's why, Hannah, for example, often people are really surprised to hear this, but I'm not a big fan of a digital detox necessarily, because I think it's a bit like, giving up sweets for Lent, or giving up booze for January. February 1st comes and you're out to get lit. It's not necessarily sustainable. And I want to have habits and positive patterns in my life which are sustainable and are there more often than they're not. So my focus is often on the management, awareness, reflection side of it, and the micro decisions we make as part of that, which stop the big feelings of overwhelm, which stop comparison coming into our lives and cloaking us almost. So I'm really big advocate and in agreement with what you're saying too. Blaming something is assigning responsibility to something else. It's like I'm not in the best health because of this has got too much stuff in it or whatever, or I'm not in the best job because my parents told me a certain way. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but if you're over 18, you're a grown up, you have to start exercising your own self-choice to a point. So I really hear you on that. It's like any way you are delegating your self-ownership to someone else is a big cause for concern, whether that's the media, beauty standards, social media, for example. It's a big cause for concern for me, and that's why awareness is everything.
Mm-hmm. So what's one thing somebody could do when they feel like they're starting to drown in comparison?
I think, this is such a great question. I always would go to this first, because for me, to get over comparison, you have to almost like set the ground. You have to create the conditions for comparison to do one and get out. You have to create the conditions for self-focus to replace comparison. So something I would always suggest first off to do is apply my house party rule. And just to share a little bit about that. So I'm a big advocate of treating your social media feeds and actually your life, but let's kind of use social media as the first context. Treating your social media feeds like a house party. So if that brand, person, opinion or thing wouldn't be invited to dance on your table and drink your booze and eat your snacks and play with your doggy and like chat to your friends, whatever, if they wouldn't be invited to that house party, they shouldn't be in your social media feed. Even if that's your sister-in-law, even if that's your boss, even if that's your best friend in real life. Because, people's energy on social media can be very different to their energy in real life. So I know I've had clients that almost fell out with their real life friends because of their online personas. We all have our own element of fame bubble. You're not going to catch me apologizing for that. I've kind of nearly hit double figures trying to take a perfect selfie before. So I'm not going to be in judgment around that too much. But it's applying that house party feed is absolutely crucial in creating the conditions for self-focus. How we do that is take out your social media app of choice. If it's safe to do so. Obviously, if you're driving, don't do that now. If you're doing anything that requires your attention, don't do it now. But whether it's Instagram or Facebook, and just scroll through and just see what sort of content you have in there, and also check in on how you're feeling about it. The next stage of the process is, if anything makes you feel lesser than, bad, negative, jealous, whatever, hide it or unfollow it from your feed immediately. Because with the absence of that, you can start to come back to yourself, start to come back to your self-focus. Because the thing about comparison is like, it's really potent in that it is such an easy distraction. So you can be, you might be kind of writing a job application that's going really, really well. You like get up and get a glass of water and you think, I'll just check Instagram. And you can kind of completely give up on the job application because of what you see someone else doing. It's so sophisticated, and it's just in the way it can distract us. So apply that house party rule to your social media feeds across all until you're ready to start inviting that content back in. Because that's really, really important. And that will create the conditions for your self-focus. And you can just start to regroup on what you want. Also, I think sometimes you can swap out. I'm a big fan of social media. I think because my social media, for me, is a very fun place to hang out. I am very aware of echo chambering, by the way, but that's a whole other debate. But I find social media a fun place to hang out because I insist on it being so. But if I'm ever kind of maybe in a confidence wobble, I've got PMT or whatever, sometimes I'll swap Instagram for Pinterest. So I have lots of vision boards or different types of boards on Pinterest that I really love. And so I'll spend time scrolling and adding to them because, again, that attaches me to my dream. It gets me into alignment, and it feels very energetically connecting with my vision for my life. Now, it started off and it was like a few vague boards, and now they're very vibrant, they're very full, they're being followed by lots of people, and there's holiday destinations, and there's interiors. I actually just bought the exact pot plants I wanted, like these really over-the-top cheese plants in my living room, thanks to Pinterest. So I think that's important too if you're going to go over comparison. Like, make sure you're really clear on what you want and where you want to be, and fill your life with the content, conversations and activities that are going to help connect you with that and get halfway. I really feel like, I really believe in universal energy. And I believe in attraction as part of that too. And I also believe in non-attachment being crucial. So I think the most important thing I can ever do is show up every day to meet my dream halfway, because I believe there's something much more powerful than me driving the engine of the dream to bring it closer. Something I'd also love to share in terms of, which can be a little bit more reflective and probably require, you know, some sofa time with an iPad or with a notepad and pen, is to do this activity, which I'll often ask clients to do when we start working together, especially when I run workshops too in bigger groups, is to invite people to kind of step into the space of their comparison and, you know, with a notepad and pen, get a glass of water, get away from your phone, put some like calming music on, just give yourself, you know, half an hour to complete this exercise, which is list out the different ways you compare yourself to other people. It might be really, really specific, like Jenny in finance has the best hair ever, or whatever. Or it might be, I just can't seem to get over my ex's new girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. And list that down, and then look at the feelings that brings up as the next part of it. So it might be there are 4 columns to this exercise. And the third step of the exercise is look at what the insight, though the comparison is trying to share with you. So to put a bit of context around that, I had a client that came to me and she was raging with comparison with an ex-colleague who was always checking into departure lounges on Facebook, flying first class, you know, always turning left on planes or going up the stairs, you know, lots of like, you know, those hot dog leg pictures in between meetings. And she was just so like passionately angry and jealous of this woman. And through our conversation, I was able to kind of inquire more on this. I said, well, when was the last time you got any time off? Like, when was the last time you had a blast of culture? When was the last time you found yourself in a departure lounge and you actually wanted to be there? And it was interesting to find through following the thread that the comparison led us to, through a conversation, this woman could not remember the last time she'd actually been on holiday. She'd had like a few long weekends to like friends' weddings, etc. And she'd taken a yard trip here and there over time that she could remember. But of late, and I'm talking last 18 months, has she had any real rest, real time to reflect, real time to read a book, get up when she wanted to? No, she couldn't remember when. So that was the root of it. Her comparison trigger was leading her to the insight that it was time for rest, recuperation, and to reset herself and reset the way that she allowed people to treat her in her life too. So the action from there, the comparison ultimately was able to lead us to from that insight, was that, you know, on the Monday morning when she got back to work, she was in her boss's office. Like when she came in, taking her coat off, she was like, "Hi, I need to talk to you." And she was like, "I haven't been doing very well for a while, and this is why I'm going to need some support because I'm going to need some time off." And her boss looked at the sheets of like the holiday. She was like, "I cannot believe you not any time off. This is criminal. I should have been instructing you to have more rest." And now she and her boss have this amazing relationship of trust, mutual respect. You know, they could both depend on each other to now speak more clearly. So to use that anecdote as part of this exercise, to invite anyone out there to kind of look at, you know, almost getting their crystal of insight that the comparison's giving them. If you look at how you compare yourself to people and taking each of those in turn and looking at how that makes you feel, now ask yourself and, you know, do this ultimate self-inquiry. What is the insight for you? What's your equivalent of realizing that you just haven't had that holiday time that you need? And we all need that recuperation. It might be you're comparing your health to a friend who suddenly seems to be like this skinny mini gym buddy. And, you know, you've always kind of prided yourselves on kind of not really having, you know, health at the top of your priority. Maybe your comparison to her spending time in the gym is a reflection on the fact that you actually want to be kinder to yourself, that you want to move more, that you don't want to keep skipping yoga classes, that you do want more energy. And, you know, so using that anecdote and following that through to the final but key part of the exercise, and forgive the plain language, but what are you going to do about it? You know, because clarity and action cut off the oxygen to comparison. So using that anecdote, it might be, you know what, I'm going to see if I keep saying this yoga class, I can't get to it because I have to work or because it takes me a long time to get there. Okay, where is there a yoga class you can get to? Maybe if you approached your line manager at work, you could they could start doing yoga at lunchtimes. Maybe someone that, you know, your friend who kind of works there would be up for even taking lessons. or doing sessions. You just don't know. But it's looking at kind of what are you going to do about it? Like, what's the opportunity for you to act in service of your own alignment? And just kind of doing one thing makes such a huge difference. And that clarity will also help fuel all decisions to go and follow that next right move, because that's another way of looking at it. Like, what am I going to do about it? What's my next right move based on what I know now?
This is so good. I love this. I'm a huge fan of Pinterest as well.
Yeah.
That's like pieces of homework my clients get all the time, is to just spend some time on Pinterest and to keep editing and to keep like throwing pictures out and to really get so perfectly focused on what they want to do, what their journey looks like. What do you want to wear? What do you want to eat? Where do you want to travel? Like, what's the life that you want? Because I feel like the more we spend time around other people, and now with the help of social media, like, we can be in these huge crowds of people and be exposed to so many different life paths. It's really helpful to know what we want. Like, I remember being in fashion school and being surrounded by all those incredibly well-dressed people and thinking, I don't know what my style is. I feel so out of place here. And so I really just like sat down with Pinterest, and then after, a couple of hours of seeing pictures and like feeling into it and visualizing myself in those clothes, I had my own style. And ever since, it's been so easy for me, because I just look at my Pinterest board, because that always gets me back home. I always think, is it for me though? Is that my path? And oftentimes some of my clients will say, oh, but like, I need to be in the loop of what's happening in my industry. Oh, but I need to know like what my friends are doing so that I don't miss out on anything. Or, oh, I should like always be in the loop of what's happening, because I could miss out. And it's not true at all, because we don't need to know what other people are doing in order to find our own path.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another what I've noticed as well about my comparison, Hannah, is that when I'm busy and life is good, I haven't got time to look at what other people are doing. Like, people are saying, oh, did you hear about so-and-so who got this book deal or whatnot? And I'm like, I did not. I better text her and congratulations, because I didn't have a clue. Or she got engaged, or she put her prices up, or blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm like, I didn't have a bloody clue. Thanks for letting me know. I'm so behind the times, because when I'm in alignment, and I'm just clear that life is rising up to meet me, and I'm in my life, not just kind of like watching what's going on while everyone else carries on, I haven't got time to look. And that's almost like a bit of a cue for me. I'm like, why am I on this person's feed again? Like, you have no business being here, madam.
And I feel like we stay in touch with what matters.
Yeah, you got it.
Our closest friends, we can't have 25 best friends. That just doesn't work. Like, the day still has only 24 hours, but we are going to stay in touch with the people who matter. I feel the same way. Oftentimes friends of mine are saying, oh, did you know, like, she had a baby and he is doing this and that. And, I'm just saying, I really don't know. But if they were my friends, I would call them, I would, text them, I would stay in the loop, I would go visit them, and I would know, but I simply can't be friends with everybody, so it's totally fine to miss out on all that. And I just wish them well. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that's really, really cool attitude to have, and I'm trying to be more there too, because it's a two-way street, isn't it? Like, I didn't know, but they didn't tell me. So it's not my fault. Like, we're not psychic, and you can then take action when you have the information. I had this great expression, which sounds a little bit heavy on the first listen, but has really helped me stay in alignment with the relationships that I need to be really present in at any one time. And I think it was Iyanla Vanzant that said it on an Oprah show, which is, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I look back even over the last 18 months, I'm like, yeah, I can see where this is going, and there will be some times that I've got a couple of friends at the moment. We were inseparable last year, and for lots of different reasons, we now don't speak much. There's no malice there at all. I wouldn't even describe us having drifted apart. The connection is still there. We're still friends. We still love each other, wish each other well. But right now, we each have to be absolutely 110% in our own lives. Because it's almost like, what's great about friendship is they provide huddles for us as well. So, like, I've seen them like on American football, just huddle, and then like split, right, okay, let's go. I kind of find that my friendships help me with that. And I certainly try and be that huddle energy for my friends too, and that supporter for them, unquestionably. And that there does come a time, like you say, where you just can't leak energy everywhere, because I also have a husband and a dog and a stepson, and I have my family, etc. So, at the moment, there's a few people on WhatsApp like, hey Lucy, hey Lucy, hey Lucy, I'm Lucy. I'm like, I haven't called my mum back for like a week. So if I have 5 minutes to scratch my ass, excuse my language, I'm going to call my mum, or I'm going to make time to speak to anyone. I'm going to call my mum. If there's anyone that can just grab 5 minutes, it's going to be my mum. And, we teach people how to treat us, don't we? So there's a lot of people waiting for responses from me at the moment, because I've got time, but I don't have time to go through 20 WhatsApp messages from people I don't know very well. And I don't actually know how they've got my number, actually. Which is another thing which really pisses me off, people giving out my details. But anyway, this isn't my therapy session. It's all boundaries, right?
So good. So we're getting to the end of our conversation. I would love to know just a couple of smaller things about you. What's a dream you still want to realize?
A dream I still, it's really interesting, like TV would be great. I really feel called and ready to take my message to be more visible. I try and be as visible as possible online. I'm not posting every single day, because I try and walk my talk in terms of how I'm on social media and don't automate anything. But I really feel like I'd love to start and be involved in a wider conversation about our relationships with digital, our relationships with ourselves, or what it is to kind of be a human being on planet Earth Day. So that's a dream that I'm calling in this year, that I think will happen. So I'm kind of shopping around for a TV agent at the moment, and starting to do my vision board on Pinterest about kind of what I might wear or what I might want to speak about. I'm not necessarily saying like a TV show about myself or my work. It's just joining a conversation, like maybe a panel, for example, that would really appeal to me. So that's kind of an immediate dream, I guess. Other things, I'm doing pretty well. It sounds really arrogant. What I mean by that is I try not to be too future focused, but always have a clear idea of how I want to feel and where I want to be. And I feel like I'm in a place where life is rising up to meet me at the moment. So I'm kind of like trying to hold my stare with a lot of stuff. But if I had to choose something that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, if I'm Kid in a Sweet Shop, that would be it right now, Hannah.
That's cool. What's a book you love?
I love The Big Leap. Also, a book I absolutely love is so she's a writer that I hadn't heard of before. I discovered her by chance last year. Her name is Genevieve Davis, and she has a book series, and I think the first one is called Becoming Magic, and it's basically a guide to manifestation. Please don't be put off by the word manifestation, because some people find it very, very polarizing, and I absolutely understand why, because I think the law of attraction has shot itself in the foot so much in terms of how it's perceived. But again, you ain't got time for that. But her series of Becoming Magic is a really plain language, down to earth, short, potent, powerful approach to really claiming and managing the energy in your own life. And I have, since I discovered Genevieve Davis's work, I think it was like last February, everything has changed for me. I've read loads of books before then, of course, gone to loads of seminars, like sat and binged on YouTube in my pajamas till the wee small hours in the morning, when I definitely should have been in bed hours before. But her work has been like the sound of 1,000 pennies dropping. So I think Genevieve Davis, and again, just to reinforce, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, I think opened a lot of doors in the back of my head I didn't know were there, and it's allowed me to really consolidate on a lot of learning too.
Oh, cool. I'm so curious to download it and read it.
Oh yeah, do. I think I've actually got I've got her audiobooks from iBooks from the app, so I'm sure they're on Audible as well. But I don't often have time to, I suppose I don't make time to sit down and read very much, if I'm really honest. So I actually got the audiobooks so that when I'm, walking my dog, I had them on. And Hannah, it resonated so much. I find myself walking around the same block like 3 times, and my dog was like pulling to go home. I was like, oh yeah. And I was just lost in the words because they were just so powerful. So I really highly recommend that. It's a hidden gem. I've recommended it to so many people, and I can't tell you the messages I've had of just like, oh, thank you so much. The way she put it like this changed everything. And that's really how I found the book. It won't be for everyone, but speaking from my heart, I would really love to just make sure everyone goes and gets that.
Wow, I'm so excited. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, this is great. The best advice I've ever received. I think it would come back to, almost reinforcing part of our conversation today, which is trust the timing of your life. Trust the timing of your life. I'm going to be 34 soon. And so like, I'm not a grandma or anything, but I've been around enough and had enough had some life experience to know that, and good and bad, that ultimately things work out. And just, don't give up before the miracle too, because I think sometimes we put so much hope and attachment onto what we want to happen, whether it's an opportunity, a relationship, a job, whatever it can be, and it's so easy to get obsessive about things, but I just feel like, just trust the timing of your life. Like, trust is a really, really important word for me. It means faith, it means commitment, it has lots of different like subparts to it. And I think ultimately, if that's something I would pass on or tell myself, it would be trust the timing of your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So how can people get and stay in touch with you?
So I'm Lucy Sheridan on Instagram, which is how you and I got to be pals. My website is proofcoaching.com, soon to switch over to lucysheridan.co. So try either of those and you'll find me. And on Facebook, it's Lucy Sheridan, the comparison coach. And guess what? I'm talking about comparison a lot over there, but only every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the conversation, Lucy.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you for such thought-provoking, depth-reaching questions as well. It's been a real pleasure.
You are so welcome. Everybody else, head on over to hannahbeer.com/show for the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Let us know in the comments section and on iTunes how you think about this, how you felt about it, and what you're going to do to stop comparing yourself. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.